Howdy, with this video, I want to go over the different types of doublespeak you're going to be using in your essay. This is that sample outline we looked at in the previous video. And in your essay, once you find your primary source, you're going to go through the different types of doublespeak the primary source uses to try to manipulate us or convince us of something. We got everything from images, euphemism, jargon, weasel words, and bureaucratese. And you might even end up using a different type that you define yourself. But I want to go through the different types, give you some examples so you can kind of better understand what doublespeak is and how it works. And you're going to find we kind of deal with this all the time. You may just never put words to it. But again, doublespeak is people using language against you to manipulate you, to convince you to do something or believe something or buy something. And it happens so much, and hopefully once you kind of do this essay, you start becoming a little bit more aware of it. This idea of doublespeak, one comes from William Lutz, who you're going to hear quite a bit about as you work on this essay. But he kind of gives credit to George Orwell in his novel 1984. Now, if you've never read the novel before, Big Brother, that's where the term Big Brother comes from. It's not just a TV show. It's just a government that controls the people, and one way they control the people is through fear, obviously through fear and manipulation, but through language, what they call newspeak. The character Sims, or Symes, I'm not sure how to pronounce his name, has a line where he says the destruction of language is a beautiful thing because the more you control and limit language, the more you control and limit other people's thoughts. And if you haven't read the novel, Big Brother had three main mantras that they force upon the people. One is that war is peace. And they're seemingly contradictory phrases, but we find we still kind of apply these contradictory ideas in our modern world. Ignorance is strength and freedom is slavery. By the way, that's a picture of George Orwell there. But just that war is peace is one, that's one that we kind of work with now, right? Why are we sending cluster bombs to the Ukraine? To maintain peace? Is that why we spend all this money on the military? So that we can maintain peace? Or how does that work? And you just start seeing, and once you start talking about it, you can start filtering out some of this doublespeak. It's called the Defense Department, not the Department of War now, right? Who are we defending ourselves against? It's kind of an interesting question. But you can start seeing all these different forms of doublespeak creeping in. But again, doublespeak's been going on ever since the beginning of language, right? In the beginning, almost all religious texts, you see examples of doublespeak. Am I my brother's keeper? When God asks you, where's your brother at? Great example of deflecting. And the book from the definition from William Lutz is right there. I'm not going to read that whole thing to you. You can read faster than I can talk, right? But it's a good definition, a very comprehensive definition. And the three main points to that definition is that language can be used as a form of manipulation to obscure unpleasant facts. And just because you say you lost your mother, we all know that you're using a little bit of doublespeak, but not with evil intent. You're just trying to put a pleasant face on an unpleasant reality, particularly death. A lot of doublespeak and interesting language around death, right? Language can be used to avoid or shift responsibility. Whenever, particularly like a government official, if somebody does something wrong, you can see that doublespeak creeping in there. Oops. Previous. There we go. And we should look to see whether or not the facts are agreeing with the words that are being said. Sometimes when we look at drug ads, we're going to see that happening, where they start talking about the side effects and they show somebody, playing with a puppy and things like that. Some examples, any major debate, you're going to see this doublespeak, this need to control language creep in. With the abortion debate, if you're pro-life, a little bit of doublespeak right there, right? Does that mean the other people are anti-life or against life? You're probably going to use the phrase like the unborn child. But it's kind of an odd phrase. It sounds like a zombie kid, right? We don't generally define ourselves by what we're not. But it's a very interesting term that puts a particular image in the user's head, right? So if you're pro-life, that's probably the term you're going to use. If you're pro-choice, as opposed to against choice, it's going to start. Abortion is going to start being called a procedure. The fetus might be unviable tissue, and you run into some interesting questions about that, right? So it doesn't really matter which side of the argument you're on. you're probably engaging in some level of doublespeak, just trying to control the language so you can kind of control the conversation. Hopefully that kind of makes sense. Same thing with things like capital punishment. You're putting someone to death. That's quite the punishment, right? But any kind of things like this, particularly if we want to deflect blame, with these standards of learning tests, when they started those in Southwest Virginia, the head of the teachers union said, these standards are, we shouldn't judge teachers by these tests because teachers in Southwest Virginia are working with a challenged population. A great use of doublespeak there because, who do you blame for poor scores? It's not the school, it's not the teachers, it's not the students or the parents. The curriculum, it's the whole population is challenged somehow. What does she mean by challenge? Great use of language to deflect blame and responsibility. Right? What are we supposed to get from this? If you start piling on the use of doublespeak, things start getting very murky and very disturbing sometimes even. We're going to go over 3 types. You'll probably end up breaking these down a little bit more in your essay if you need to. For example, you might talk about jargon in one paragraph, then weasel words in another. But within your essay, you're going to have to define these terms. My term definitions are coming from William Lutz, the book. But euphemisms, an inoffensive or positive word used to avoid a harsh or unpleasant or distasteful reality. And again, we do that all the time, like with like death or when something bad happens. But probably if you've ever experienced being fired, you probably didn't actually get fired maybe. You might have experienced involuntary early retirement program, might experience some labor force adjustments. Right, Eastman never fires anybody. They might downsize, they might move some operations overseas. Teachers don't get renewed. We say, I didn't get renewed this year. We got fired, right? But getting fired and taking away someone's livelihood doesn't sound very good, particularly if you're going to do it to a lot of people and you're a big company. So we have all these euphemisms, restructuring and all this good stuff. We went through right-sizing at Northeast State a few years ago. And that all of a sudden the doublespeak's creeping in, right? We're using euphemism, putting a positive spin on something that's really very unpleasant. People are losing their jobs. Think about war, language of death, of killing people. And it doesn't sound good to say we spend all this money for machines that kill people. And when you start talking about what the military does, these euphemisms start creeping into the language. People don't get killed, but targets might get acquired or serviced. If you bomb something, you converted it. We don't really bomb people anymore. We use air support, insertions, or preemptive strikes. We don't attack people. We do a preemptive strike, right? Sometimes accidentally the wrong targets are serviced due to friendly fire. That term friendly fire is a great use of euphemism for shooting your own person, right? Or killing your own people. Or if you accidentally bomb the orphanage instead of the bunker, we call that collateral damage, right? And what's the cause of collateral damage? Well, incontinent ordnance. It's the bomb's fault it fell on the orphanage, not any person. So you can see these euphemisms kind of forcing you to rethink how you think about things, put a pleasant face on very unpleasant reality. Also, when soldiers die, we're kind of taught to say he gave their life for the country, like it was a soldier's choice to go in harm's way, or even a better one as he made the ultimate sacrifice, or she made the ultimate sacrifice. Was it really the soldier's choice to do that, or was he or she put there in harm's way by someone else who doesn't want to take responsibility for that? Again, we use these all the time, but sometimes you start thinking, it's like, I don't do that. Of course, our military, we're kind of the good guys, or we're supposed to be at least. When other countries start talking about purification programs or re-education camps or resettlement programs, some bad things are starting to happen to people, and we're using euphemism to kind of cover it up and shift blame and all that. Excuse me, all that good stuff. One of the best users or more insidious users of euphemisms were the Nazis. If you were Jewish and you're about to experience resettlement, you're in trouble, right? Particularly if you're going to be resettled to the east. That's where the concentration camps were. This is Gates at Auschwitz. Work will make you free. Well, of course it does, because they work you to death. And the final solution was a way of explaining how we're going to kill millions and millions of people. So kind of one of the ultimate uses of a euphemism, the final solution. What's the problem? Apparently the problem is that these people even existed, right? So again, sometimes euphemism can be kind of silly, or you can kind of see right through it. But sometimes it's a little more. I like that word insidious, where if someone's about to kill you, they're probably going to use a euphemism as they're doing it, so they can kind of deflect blame and guilt and get the dirty deed done. So that's euphemism, putting a pleasant word on an unpleasant reality. Jargon, weasel words, that's jargon's a specialized language of a particular trade, profession, or similar group. We'll just go back to the military. If you're being fired upon, you need specialized language so you can get help quick, right? That's not necessarily doublespeak. You're not trying to fool anybody or anything like that. You just have to special language so you can get things done quickly. When I worked in kitchens, we had our own language for, fire this, fire that, 86 that. We had all these different phrases. We weren't trying to fool anybody, but we just had to move quickly sometimes to get the food out. So we all kind of have our own language. We've had to learn some jargon with this English class, right? What's a comma splice or run together sentence or things like that. But sometimes, if you're in the hospital and you experience a negative patient care outcome that results in your terminal episode, all of a sudden the jargon is starting to get a little more insidious. It's not quite euphemism. They're just using technical terms to kind of hide the fact that they may have killed somebody through a diagnostic misadventure of a high magnitude. Someone made a mistake and they killed you, right? And they want to use language that kind of deflects that blame, particularly legal liability, right? When a plane crashes, of course, and the people inside experience that involuntary conversion, what do they say? They have to account for these plane crashes on their accounting books, right? Sometimes they're insured, they might make some money, and they have to account for that money. So it's a lot easier to say you made a little bit of money on this involuntary conversion of the plane instead of saying, hey, the plane crashed and killed 200 people on it. And if you're not a lawyer, you don't know what involuntary conversion is, you may not be able to pick that up, and they're using jargon against you so that you don't know what's going on. A special type of jargon, again, we use these all the time, especially in advertisements, are called weasel words. These are words that seem to say something, but either hollow or qualify the words that follow. So I can say that I will guarantee that if you finish this video, you have the possibility of earning up to $1 million in the next 5 years. Guaranteed. This video will help you become a millionaire. And notice that weasel word helps, qualifies whatever comes after it. If you come back to me in 5 years and go like, where's my $1 million, bud? I'm going to say, I said it'd help. I didn't say do it. I said you had the possibility from 0 to $1 million. I didn't say that you'd actually get $1 million. So these weasel words, particularly if you think about advertisements, Crest helps fight cavities. Well, so does rubbing your fingers on your teeth, right? Don leaves dishes virtually spotless. Well, virtually means it doesn't, right? You're virtually a millionaire right now. Just might be $999,000 short. Works to do something, treats. When we look at drug ads, we're going to look at the word treats. You treat a condition. It doesn't eliminate it, doesn't cure it, just treats it, which isn't really saying anything. So as you start stringing these weasel words together, you can say pretty much anything you want to. And if you don't know what a weasel word is, you might fall for it, right? We can start looking at some examples. This is going to be an ad for Zoloft. Let's see if I make it big.
You know when you feel the weight of sadness. You may feel exhausted, hopeless.
Hold on. That didn't come on right. There we go. Okay. Let me put that back. Sound up. This is an ad for Zoloft, the antidepressant.
You know when you feel the weight of sadness. You may.
Hold on. Let me get that.
You know when you feel the weight of sadness. You may feel exhausted, hopeless, and anxious. Whatever.
Notice a very generalized definition of depression, and also, especially if you want to do your essay on an ad like this, you can start with these images. If you think back to that sample outline, what's this little egg-looking thing? There's a bluebird of happiness, the cloud hanging over your head. But just the language they use, they want you to kind of diagnose yourself and go to a doctor and start asking for Zoloft, right?
Whatever you do, you feel lonely and don't enjoy the things you once loved. Things just don't feel like they used to. These are some symptoms of depression, a serious medical condition affecting over 20 million Americans. While the cause is unknown.
All right there. While the cause is unknown, they kind of throwing that phrase out there, and after that, they're going to kind of start saying whatever they want. They're going to give you this image of nerve cells. This obviously isn't what nerve cells look like. It says dramatization, which means they can pretty much draw whatever they want. So they kind of qualified whatever they're about to say. If you don't know what the causes of depression are, how can you create a drug to address those problems?
Depression may be related to an imbalance of natural.
May be related or may not be related. May is a weasel word.
Chemicals between nerve cells in the brain. Prescription Zoloft works to correct this imbalance.
Again, it doesn't say it guarantees to fix the imbalance. It works to correct. Are weasel words that qualify whatever comes after them. They can say it works to correct the gas problem in your car. They can say anything they want after that, right?
You just shouldn't have to feel this way anymore. Only your doctor can diagnose depression. Zoloft is not for everyone. People taking MAOIs or Pimozide shouldn't take Zoloft. Side effects may include dry mouth, insomnia, sexual...
There you go with the may again. Side effects may include this or this or that. They know what the side effects include. They've done studies on this drug, but they're not going to tell you exactly how often they happen. Notice the images changing. Got the happy flower, the flying birds. The birds all flying happier now. The little egg thing smiling. They spend a lot of money creating this ad. They know these images mean something to us, and they're using them against us to get us to buy the Zoloft.
Side effects, diarrhea, nausea, and sleepiness. Zoloft is not habit-forming. Talk to your doctor about Zoloft, the #1 prescribed brand of its kind. Zoloft. When you know more about what's wrong, you can help make it right.
And again, that help make it right, not a specific claim about anything. This whole ad doesn't say anything really about the drug, except it may have some side effects, right? It doesn't tell us how it works. It doesn't tell us how often it works. Just very little information, but they got to make it look like it's going to work so that you'll want to go to your doctor and ask for it. That's exactly how Doublespeak works. Saying nothing at all in 1 minute commercial there, right? Let me get back to the PowerPoint here. And you can start doing this with drug addicts work really well for this. Not everybody likes to do drugs. Some people like to get into politics. But if you look at something like Vyvanse, it's an ADHD medication. Lots of happy people. And you'll see, not gonna let us get down there. One, you can look at the colors. Green and purple mean something to our minds as we look at stuff like that. This is a patient portrayal. This isn't a real person on the drugs. And you're kind of getting you to diagnose yourself, go to the doctor a little bit. And just the different images, patient portrayal, that's not an actual kid on the drug. And Vyvanse is for the treatment of ADHD in patients over 6 years of age. Doesn't mean it cures anything. There's a high chance for abuse, may cause physical and psychological dependence. Well, with speed, right? So they got to kind of figure out ways to say all this, try to get you to want to ask your doctor about it, right? Particularly something like ADHD, it's a hard one to diagnose. You just kind of get a list and describe behaviors. It's not something you can do genetic testing for or something. But you might take a drug like that, particularly if there's a television ad, then you can come to the website. And also you might have a pretty good a basis for a good essay on Doublespeak. You can kind of go through and look at the language, go not a lot of images in this one. Usually with ADHD medications, they show happy kids doing homework, because that's for a while the battle is with ADHD kids. And everybody's smiling and getting hugs from mommy and all that good stuff. But it's very, very interesting. How do you sell something? How do you get people to buy it? And also you can go to different places have prescribing information. This is the actual FDA prescribing information. And you can go through and see, they actually know how often side effects occur. I don't want to sit here and just have you watch me scroll forever, but some of these, particularly antidepressant drugs, can have pretty serious side effects. Nausea, 1 in 4, dry mouth, about 1 in 5. Pretty high odds of sleeplessness. I'm not sure what abnormal ejaculation is, but you got a 1 in 4 chance. Yikes, right? I kind of don't want to know what that is. But you can go through the prescribing information. Not all drugs have that many side effects at that rate. But when you start looking at the effectiveness of drugs versus the side effects, sometimes side effects are as likely to happen as the good stuff. But we all have these weasel words. If you've ever been to a sale that said up to 75% off and you got there and nothing was 75% off, well, they said up to, right? In education, we like to enhance our educational programs. Just a weasel word, enhance, doesn't mean anything, right? Just using these weasel words to qualify whatever comes after it and make it sound like we're saying something. So when you start really looking at advertisements in particular, you're going to see these weasel words. You'll see this also with politicians and things like that. And the last one, we're going to get into inflated language, bureaucratese, gobbledygook. Generally, that's just using obscure, inflated language, or just piling on the words till the listener gives up. You're going to see that Lutz kind of separates these out a little bit. We'll kind of see, it kind of depends on your source. If you've ever used one of those user agreements for software, you just want to play your video game or whatever, and all of a sudden you're supposed to read all this. It's written by lawyers, for lawyers. They don't really expect you to read it. They don't want you to read it, to be honest. They just want you to sign it and move on and give up all your rights to whatever remediation you might have if something goes wrong. And think about how often you do that. Just say, yeah, whatever, just let me do my thing. If you ever go buy a house or a car, do you actually read those documents? Could you read those documents if you wanted to? Or is it written by lawyers, for lawyers with this bureaucratese, this legalese, to kind of just make you quit and just give up reading? That notice to students, that's in one of the journal entries. We'll see if y'all can figure out what they're trying to say there. It's a notice to you, but again, you're going to see it's probably written by a lawyer to kind of qualify Northeast State's legal liability for things. So again, you got the 3 different types: euphemism, jargon, and weasel words, inflated language, bureaucratese, gobbledygook. And when people start combining these together, it can get really interesting, and hopefully it might provide good fodder for a good essay. I don't know, it's been a while. But a while back, General Motors cars were having trouble where if you had too much stuff on your keychain, which I often do, it could turn the car off. And if you do that going 80 miles an hour down the interstate, right, your steering wheel locks, your brakes don't work well because you lose the power brakes, and you can get hurt. And they finally got caught with this. So here's the CEO of the company. We are taking responsibility for what has happened by taking steps, not for what they did, but for what has happened, right? And taking steps to treat these victims and their families with compassion, decency, and fairness. What does that mean, just to take steps? Why don't we just treat them with compassion, decency, and fairness? We made serious mistakes in the past, and as a result, we're making significant changes in our company to ensure they never happen again. And then that ensure, again, another little weasel word there. But one interesting thing about this statement, and they're trying to kind of weasel out of things, right? They screwed up and they know it. And they knew there were problems with these cars before they put them out, and put them out anyway. But then we get this little forward-looking statements passage here. In this press release and in related comments by our management, the use of our words expect, anticipate, they're literally giving you all the weasel words and euphemisms that you're going to use to kind of qualify what they're going to say. and then say, hey, we're doing the best we can. We believe these judgments are reasonable, but these statements are not guarantees of any events or financial results, and our actual results may differ. And they start telling you why, among other items, such factors as our ability to realize production efficiencies and achieve reductions in costs as a result of our restructuring initiatives and labor modifications. All those euphemisms talking about firing people, right? Our ability to maintain quality control. They're basically saying, hey, we're just going to say the best we can, but you can't hold us to us, and good luck. Sorry if you lose money if you invested in our company or whatever. I'm sorry if you lost your job, but but just looking at the language they use to explain what they're doing is just it's difficult to read through. You kind of get that bureaucratic kind of feel. All these euphemisms being piled up, the weasel words being used. Just in this little short statement, it might be hard to get the entire essay out of it, but it's a good place to start. If you actually go back and see what they were talking about when their cars were killing people, you might have a pretty good essay. In fact, John Oliver did an episode on GM, so we're going to watch that to close out the video. Again, if you don't know who John Oliver is, he's a late night kind of talk show host, comedian, kind of does the news, but it does talk about news topics quite often. But he's going to talk about GM here.
Just this Friday, we learned that GM was holding meetings at the time about dealing with their defective cars. But you'll never guess what they were talking about.
These are slides from a PowerPoint presentation given in 2008. Workers were told not to use the word defect or defective, but rather does not perform to design. And GM had judgment words that were banned, including dangerous, crippling, life-threatening, hobbling, and 65 others.
How did they even come up with that list? Was it just word association at that point? Okay, everyone, say the first word that comes to mind. Cadillac XDS. Life-threatening, perfect. The new Chevy Sonic. Crippling and dangerous, fantastic, keep them going. There are no bad ideas here, just bad cars. And there were a lot more words on that list than just those four mentioned, because the banned words include, and I'm going to show you the document to prove that they are real as I read them. They include death trap, decapitating, grenade-like, Hindenburg, Kevorkian-esque, powder keg, rolling sarcophagus, and your toast. When demons have sex, those are their safe words. We don't technically have commercial breaks on this show, but frankly, after this, I think we all might just need one just to get away from this story altogether. So if you'll excuse us, we'll be right back.
General Motors makes cars that America can be proud of. Cars you could never describe as defective or catastrophically flawed. Gruesome, potentially disfiguring rolling sarcophagi? That's not our cars. We make sleek, non-grenade-like anti-Hindenburgs that are the very opposite of Kevorkian-esque. So why not tell your family you love them and come test drive a GM car today? Driving a GM car is so smooth, it's like butter. And you're toast. General Motors. Why walk through the valley of the shadow of death when you can drive?
So he's having a little bit of fun with that. That's the end of the PowerPoint, I think. But so when you start thinking about your primary source, you want to look for one that kind of has these different types. A lot of things open all of a sudden. These different types of doublespeak where you can start developing your examples within the primary source, whether it's the images, the euphemisms. And don't forget, you're going to be defining these terms as you use them, hopefully from William Lutz. That source is up there under material for a doublespeak essay. But you may not find all of these in one primary source, but hopefully you'll find, like, again, 3 or 4. And hopefully the more you start thinking about doublespeak, you start recognizing it, the essay will start making a little more sense. Again, it's kind of up to you what kind of topic you want to work with. Some people like to get into politics. Other people are like, no, I don't want to go with politics. You got to see we're going to look at politics with the journal entries a little bit, and some of their uses of images and wording that really don't make specific claims about what they can do. They can't really promise much, right? But hopefully that helps a little bit and gets you ready to start looking for a good primary source. And again, that primary source should be the actual ad. Then, not somebody else talking about the ad, but you looking at the ad, or you looking at a particular speech or something like that. So again, if you want to do something like Donald Trump's doublespeak, you have to actually go to a speech Donald Trump gave, and go through that and find the doublespeak within it, and find different types of doublespeak. And it may take a little extra work, particularly something like a speech, because no politician says, "I won't now use weasel words," and they're working it in there to qualify what they say. All right, but I'm going to hush up now, and if you have any questions about all this, be sure to let me know, and we will talk to you later. Bye-bye.